Welcome to War Stories, a series of videos exploring the iconic battles and conflicts that shaped medieval Europe. So let's start with the Battle of Tours, which took place on October 10th, 732 AD. I think it's already one sign of what we see here, that this is these battles, we have dates for most of them, like not sometime in this year, but like on this particular day. It's a sign that these things were well attested to and they were considered to be important, that someone would take down the date like that. Now, this battle, which happened near Tours, France, was between the Umayyad Caliphate and the Franks. The Umayyads were the top military power in the world and controlled Persia, North Africa, Syria, Armenia, and the old Iranian Empire. They invaded Spain in 711 and successfully subdued the peninsula. They were now pressing into Gaul. They were led by Abd al-Rahman ibn Abd al-Ghafiqi. They were opposed by the strongest military power in Europe, the Franks, which then consisted of north and eastern France, most of western Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The Franks were led by Charles Martel. In essence, what we see here is a battle of the world's superpowers. The Umayyads seemed unaware of the power of the Franks, thinking no significant threat would oppose them. But the rising Carolingian Empire was on the verge of becoming the most technologically advanced army in Europe. In this battle, they fielded a new kind of heavy infantry. In subsequent battles, their devastating cavalry would be brought to bear. Preparation played a huge role. Charles had seen this battle coming for a decade and had been preparing that whole time. He convinced the Pope that the Caliphate was an existential threat to Christianity and borrowed money from Rome to train and maintain a permanent army of professional infantry, something that wasn't done in those days. And would be a very long time before that became the norm. This army campaigned with him for years, becoming a tight-knit and battle-hardened force. They were armed with heavy armor and anti-cavalry weapons. They deployed in the ancient phalanx formation, and they were supported with Spartan military discipline. They were dressed for the cold, unlike the Umayyads, and they knew their enemies' strengths and weaknesses. Meanwhile, the Umayyads, in their disdain of what they considered to be barbarian tribes, had no idea that this was an army that had trained for this very fight for a decade. They were unprepared for the cold, and they didn't know the land. What's more, and this is really impressive, Charles managed to achieve total surprise. As the invaders were marching, they suddenly found a very large army in their path. This is nuts, right? Imagine you're just like walking down the street, getting ready to conquer some people, and then like all of a sudden there's this huge army right in front of you, and you had no idea there was even the potential for an army to be in the field. How did he do this? He did it by marching directly over the mountains and avoiding the roads. And so he marched his army through the most difficult land to march through in order to arrive at the spot of his choosing, at the time of his choosing, and gain total surprise against the invading army. Now, most contemporary accounts, that is to say accounts contemporary to the battle, give the Caliphate a 2-to-1 or better advantage in numbers. But Charles had been able to choose the location of the battle. And rather than attack, he drew up a strong defensive position. Still, and this is very important, the Caliphate had cavalry, which the Franks did not yet have. The truism of war at that time was that it was impossible for infantry to withstand a heavy cavalry charge. It had never happened before. But Charles's forces withstood charge after charge throughout the day. Several times, the cavalry broke through, which usually spelled the end for the infantry. They'd just wheel around and start killing people from behind. But the well-trained Franks, who trusted Charles completely, never broke. As one chronicle written in 754 says, the northern peoples remained as immobile as a wall, holding together like a glacier in the cold regions. In the end, al-Ghafiqi was killed, and the Umayyads retreated in tight discipline. Charles had held. This battle is often touted as halting the Muslim advance in Europe. And in many ways that's true. They were stopped. They invaded twice more. And the first of those second times, so the second out of 3 times, when they invaded, they came with an even larger army. But both times they invaded, they found Charles standing in their path, and they were defeated. These successes earned Charles the surname Martel, the Hammer. Internal dissension further weakened the Caliphate, but the battle for France and Spain would continue until Charles's grandson, Charlemagne, at last put a stop to it, leaving the Muslims significant holdings in Spain, but establishing a lasting Christian presence south of the Pyrenees.